Hi class, we're going to be doing a romper today. A romper is just a short version of a jumpsuit, but you get all the main points that we need to do for the look of a jumpsuit type of garment. So today we're going to start with measuring the top area, and then we're going to be measuring the bottom area. You're going to have two different spec pages. You're going to have a top spec page, then you're going to have a bottom spec page, because there's different measurements and how they grade and everything. So you're going to be using both of them. So we'll start measuring the top, and then when I tell you we're going to the bottom, then you go to the spec page for the bottom to do the measurements. So we'll start with the romper. So as usual, you want to make sure that the garment is laying out flat. This is a georgette type of fabric, so you need to make sure that it's laying out flat and nice. Now we're going to start with the neck width seam. This one doesn't actually have a seam, so it's going to be actually edge to edge. So in your spec sheet, if it says seam, you're going to change it to edge, neck seam to edge. All right? So lay this out. Again, you want to make sure this is flattened out. You don't want it to go in, you don't want it to go out. It needs to lay exactly how it's going to lay to get the proper measurement. So here the neck width edge to edge is 10 inches. Now we're going to do the neck drop, so we need to place the ruler right here on high point shoulder to high point shoulder to give us a guide. Make sure whenever you're measuring that you do it exact. Okay, so we're going to measure from underneath the ruler to the drop neck, which is the V area right here that it comes to, and that is actually 9 1/4 inches. Now, because you can see the back here easily, keep it there, and we're going to measure the back. Now, again, just measure straight underneath the ruler down to the V point of the back, which is 10 1/4 inches. Okay. Now we're going to measure cross chest. Again, we have to put pins in from 1 inch underneath the armhole. So measure down 1 inch, put a pin, and then measure down 1 inch and put a pin. So I'm going to go right to the edge. Walk your tape across to the other side. So right here it is 17 3/4, which will be 35 1/2 inch total because it is a woven garment. Now on this one we have automatic waist of where it is already. So we're going to measure for the waist position. We're going to measure from high point shoulder. Again, keep this flat. And from high point shoulder straight down to this seam, which is 17 inches. That's your waist position. And because we have a seam here and everything, again, you just want to make it flat, straight across. Your waist measurement. You're going to give two waist measurements. This is going to be waist measurement relaxed, and then you're going to give a waist measurement extended. So this is relaxed. So this is 13 3/4 inch. So that'll be 27 1/2 inches. Now we need to know what the measurement is extended, like this, okay? Okay, so 16 3/4, you're going to double it. It'll be 33 1/2 inches for the waist extended. Okay, if the measurement is not in the tech pack, you're going to add it at the bottom. Now we're going to do the across front and the cross back. So we have to be careful here because it does kind of go out into a V shape. But we're going to come from the high point shoulder down 5 inches straight down. Do it on both sides. Now we're going to go from the edge of the armhole to the edge of the armhole. So straight across here, making sure this is flat. Okay, this is 11.5 inches. Okay, and as you can tell, you can see that the armholes aren't completely straight. They have different shapes, so that's why we're doing this also. Now we're going to put this to the back. Again, we're going to measure down 5 inches. Again, from the edge of the back armhole to the edge of the back armhole, and that is 13.25 inches. So there is a difference between the front and the back. There is no sleeve on this, so we don't have to worry about sleeve. We don't have to worry about the length of it because we're going to be doing 2 different pieces, and there's no collar height. So the only thing left is around the armhole. Okay, and if you notice on this, there's a seam here. It's right underneath the knot. So if you notice, if I do this like completely straight, like, you know, down here, the back is bigger than the front. So we're going to need a measurement for the front armhole and the back for this particular one. So you're going to find the seam, which is right here. And for the front, we're going to measure right along the edge of the armhole to the seam. I might have to move this around to get to the exact seam. And the seam right here is 8.5 inches. That's so front armhole will be 8.5 inches. And then the back armhole, again, we have to find the seam, which is right underneath this knot. And we're going to have to measure along the edge and then just to get to the side seam. It's hard to see in black. It is 11.25 inches for the back armhole round curve. So you're going to have a front armhole round curve and a back armhole round curve measurement. We're going to have just a placket length, a center front placket length for this to make sure that all the measurements come together. So just measure along the placket here, straight down to the waistband, and that is 7.75 inches. Okay, and this has to be in the spec page. Now we're going to start on the bottom. So go to your bottom tech pack. Again, we want to make sure that the waistband up here is equal when we're going to be doing our measurement. So the waist measurement is going to be the same as the waist measurement that we did for the top. So you can just import those same measurements, relaxed and extended. Now we're going to start on the bottom area. So we're going to do, first of all, a low hip measurement. So since this is on the waist, we're going to come down 6 inches. From center front down, we're going to come down 6 inches and put a pin. And then we have to do this on the side seams as well. So we're going to come down, follow the side seam, 6 inches, put a pin, and we'll also do it on the other side. Okay. Again, you're going to make sure that the body is flattened out because you have some gathers up here so that when you're measuring, the full actual hip area is going to be flat. And so you're going to measure straight to the center here, and then you're going to follow along back over here to the side, going all the way over. and it is 18 and a half. You're going to double it, be 37 inches for the hip. Now we're going to do the front rise. So the way that this is, the seam is, and the elastic is below the actual seam. So you're going to come up here to the actual seam, which includes elastic, and measure straight down to the inseam area, which is 12 inches. So your front rise is 12 inches. Turn around for the back rise. You're going to have to pull this because the back rise is always longer than the front. So in order to get the right measurement, you're just going to have to pull it up straight till you see the actual seam down here. And then you're going to measure here at the seam, straight down to the actual inseam, which is 15 and a half inches. Now we're going to turn this and we're going to do the leg opening. Again, it doesn't matter if the seams are not like right on the seam because you want the full measurement. So you're going to measure, put your tape right in between here. Follow along the edge to right where it would go inside, which is 11 and a half. You're going to double it. It'd be 23 inches for leg opening. Now you have to do an inseam. So the inseam is right here from where the seams meet to the edge. So that's 2 inches. And we don't need a thigh on this particular one because the thigh always is 1 inch below crotch, and that would be the same area as a leg opening. So you do not need to have a thigh measurement on this particular garment. So that's all the measurements that you need in this spec page that we'll be grading. So now we're going to do all the measurements that need to be on your sketch page. We'll start again with the top area. Again, you're going to sketch this front and back over here. The detail will probably be this area right in here that I want you to just duplicate and put down below the front area down here with all the measurements of the knot and the width of the shoulder and things like that, okay? So for this measurement, the shoulder width here for the strap area is going to be 2 3/8 of an inch wide. And because there's a seam underneath here, is where the seam actually is, we're just measuring down the center of this to the edge of the little knot here, and that's 1.5 inches. That's where you're going to have the seam and you're going to have it covered. Okay, now we're going to measure the knot area, okay? So on the sketch, you're going to measure it, starting here because you can't see with the metal part. It's 1 inch, so it's 1 inch wide, and the height of it is 3/4 of an inch. So it's 1 inch by 3/4 of an inch with the arrow for the knot. You want to indicate that there's 5 buttons, and you want to make sure you evenly put it down here. Notice the spacing, that you do have a spot here, because if you put the button too close, you're not going to actually be able to button it. So we're just going to give a measurement down here from the end of the, actually the middle of the buttonhole to the seam is 1.5 inches. So you want to put a little arrow here with 1.5 inches to show where the button actually finishes buttoning here. You want to also measure the elastic here. It's 1/2 inch. So you want to indicate this is 1/2 inch elastic at the waist. You want to do 1/4 inch top stitch, and you want to also indicate this is binding, and this is This is 3/8 of an inch binding. So you want to indicate that all armholes and neckline have 3/8 of an inch binding as a finishing to the neckline and the armhole. You want to also indicate that the elastic it's a tunnel elastic, meaning that it's able to move around. If it wasn't tunnel elastic, then it would be narrowed in, so you want to make sure that you say 1/2 inch tunnel elastic here. Now for the pockets, there's pockets on both sides, so we have to give a measurement of the width and depth. So again, now you're going to have to, for the measurement across here, you're going to have to pull it so they know what it is to make a pattern. So you're going to go from side seam to the edge of the pocket, that where it starts is 2.5 inches. Then you want to measure from the seam down to where the pocket actually comes to the side, and that is 4 3/4 of an inch. So you have an arrow down here, 4 3/4 of an inch. Cuff of the leg, let's measure the height of that. That is 1 1/4 inches. So you want to put that down, cuff 1 1/4 inches. And because this fabric is Georgette and very flimsy, you want to indicate that it must be tacked here on the inseam and the side seam, front and back in the middle, inseam and outseam. Because if you notice, there's a little bar tack that keeps the cuff up. And this is very, very important, because otherwise the cuff will just fall down like this. And it's going to kind of go that way anyway in these areas, but that's the nature of the fabric. So you want to make sure that you do tack these. If you don't put that in the sketch page, they won't tack it, and these are going to flop down, and you're going to have a problem. Now the pants are lined. The top area is not lined, but the pants are lined. So you have to indicate where the lining ends, because you always want to make sure that the lining is shorter than the body. So just come in here and take a look at where the lining ends, and it's actually ending 1 inch. So down here, just point, lining ends 1 inch above cell fabric. And you want to indicate on the top of your tech packs that bottom of romper is fully lined, top is not. Okay? Because if you don't indicate where it's lined and where it's not lined, then they'll line the whole thing, and that also becomes a cost situation. So you want to indicate only the bottom is lined. And then make sure that you draw a seam going down the back all the way down. That's how it's put together. And this is it for the romper. Any questions, email me or call me. Thank you.